Hello and welcome to English and More. I am your English teacher Shweta Roy, and today I have come up with one short revision of all the poems. So this video is going to be surely helpful for your upcoming class 12 board exam. So before you move ahead, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Share this video amongst your friends so that they also get benefited as you all are. All right, so yes, we are going to start with the first poem, that is My Mother at 66 by Kamla Das. So before I move ahead with the questions, the theme of this poem is definitely advancing age, insecurity and fear, separation and loss due to death. So if you remember these pointers, the questions that are asked revolving around the theme of the poem, that is going to these points are going to help you frame your answers, right? So advancing age, insecurity and fear attached because of the advancing age, and separation and loss due to death, again it is related to the age, right? So the first question that we have put up for you all is, why does the poetess look at young trees and merry children? Again, young trees and merry children, these are very important symbols because these are symbols of happy thoughts. So if you remember, the poet was apprehensive about her mother's age, and as a result of the age, she was apprehensive and she had fear about her separation from her mother due to death, right? So this is to distract her mind from that somber and sad mood, and this is again a symbol of freshness of life as opposed to the mother's aging. Okay, so there's a contrast. So these pointers are to be remembered. These are just the pointers. You have to elaborate on these pointers and frame your answers in your exams. Do not write in bullet points. These are just because these are just to give you the idea of how, the key elements. So on the basis of these key elements, you can frame your answers in a paragraph. The next question is, what different images does the poet use to convey the idea of a mother's old age? Okay, or else it could be framed like, imagery was an effective literary device to bring out the contrast between merry children and the mother, as discussed in the previous question. So these are the different types of questions which you should be familiar with. The answers, the content is basically the same. The answer is basically the same, but how to approach these answers based on the questions, the kind of questions, that is very, very important. So what are the images that the poet uses to convey the old age of a mother? This is very, very important. So first is late winter's moon. Okay, this is the image which conveys the pale, bloodless and wrinkled face, and that shows a resemblance to that of a corpse. So again, that is related to the aging mother. So she has no vigor, no energy, and that is the reason why she looks wan and pale, and that is why it is compared to late winter's moon. So if you are asked this comparison as a 2-marker separate question, this is the answer that you could give. Okay, then sprinting trees. Sprinting is running, right? So sprinting trees and merry children, so that is again a symbol of youth, freshness. Okay, which is in contrast to the mother's pain and old age. So, and because of the pain and old age, the poet's worry and fear, so they symbolize youth, vigor and spring, whereas in contrast the mother is old, decaying and frail. This contrast is very, very important, which was appropriate for the previous question as well, which we discussed right now. Next question is, the poet does not directly mention the fear of the mother's death, and yet she is successfully able to convey the same through different poetic techniques. One poetic technique we have already discussed, that is the imagery. Okay, the others are, for example, she is describing the mother's physical appearance. How does she describe? If you quote the words, it is going to fetch you more marks. Okay, so having an open mouth, doze, and the face compared to that of a corpse, which we already discussed in the previous question as well. Ashen color. Ash color symbolizes dullness. So yes, that is the color that she has used. Then the use of simile. Okay, late winter's moon, which we have already discussed, which is symbol of Symbolism is another poetic device, okay? Decline and impending death. Then sensory images, okay? For example, the silence in the car is described as pale, which creates a sense of discomfort, anxiety. The slow, soft breathing of the mother, that is also described in detail. And the final poetic device is use of repetition in the final lines. The word smile has been repeated thrice. That is very, very important. You could be asked a question related to the repetition in the last part as well, which creates a sense of forced cheerfulness and suggests that the speaker is trying to hide her true emotions. Her true emotions are fear and sadness, because she was getting separated from her mother physically, as well as she was thinking about the aging of her mother and separation due to death, which was upcoming, right? So that also. And that is the reason she was trying to smile and hide her true emotions and feelings behind that smile. So that is the use of repetition. Next question is the pain of separation, which is again the theme which we had discussed at the beginning. That is expressed both literally and metaphorically. Literally because of distance and time, because the mother, as the mother is asleep in the car and the speaker drives, so that is distance. Then time, and metaphorically it is reflected through the speaker's reflections. What does the speaker reflect on? The passage of time, the inevitability of death and mortality. These are the two pains. These are the two types of pain. One is literal, the other one is metaphorical. The whole poem deals with the pain of separation. Now, this is so very applicable in our modern day. So the value that we get in modern day, you have to always think in those terms, because you get a lot of value-based and hot questions, right? So this is applicable in our modern day life also, because nowadays, due to work, due to other multiple factors, parents and children, they stay apart from each other, right? They are not able to meet up much frequently, and there is a lot of time gap. Time passes very quickly, and the pain of separation, the same thing that the poet goes through, this is applicable in modern youth's life as well. So if you get a question similar to that, you could definitely frame your answers based on the points that we have discussed. Now the next poem that we are going to discuss with you is Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. The central idea of the poem is importance of silence in our lives. Please remember that this is also an anti-war poem, because it asks humanity to stop war, violence, and harming humans or animals. And that could only be achieved if we are silent. Now, this silence is not, it does not mean inactivity. This silence means you have to introspect. You have to stop doing whatever mindless things we are doing, because today we are living in a fast-paced world and we keep on going with the flow. We do things without thinking, without introspecting, without reflecting. So this silence will help you introspect what is there within you, right? And that is going to be, that's very, very important. So what will counting up to 12 and keeping still help us achieve? Now, these are the pointers which you have to think about. One is, it is going to help us achieve unity, togetherness. Everybody is silent. There is a sense of unity which is binding all of us, right? Peace, tranquility and calmness. If we are silent, we keep things at rest. That is calm and tranquility. Reflection, it is going to help us contemplate our behavior. Introspection, self-examining, understanding. Then breaking the cycle of noise, chaos and violence, which is going on every day, right? Each and every moment. Shared humanity, it is going to help us interconnect with each other. And transformation, that is personal and collective growth and change. So these are the things which we would achieve if we are silent. Next is, what symbol from nature does the poet invoke to say that there can be life under apparent stillness? Now the poet invokes the symbol of tree. If you see the representation of nature's resilience and hidden vitality, the tree remains still and motionless, but it is teeming with life. So same way, life in stillness, we should be motionless, just like the tree appears to be dormant, and then we could see unseen life within it, life at work, right? Same way, if there is stillness, it could help us in our work, right? So it would help us remind us the hidden depths of life and find meaning even in the moments which seem to be quiet or stagnant. Next is with the advancement of technology. Now, this is important. What is its relevance in our life? With the advancement of technology, social media, do you think that keeping silence, if we are silent, that which Neruda, the poet, has envisaged in the poem, is it very easy or is it complicated? How can we achieve this? Definitely, today we are always we go through a lot of information. We are showered with a lot of information, distractions, like we have social media, and we have this feeling of missing out, fear of missing out, as we say in modern day slang. It is called FOMO. You all are aware of that, right? So definitely there is a little room for quiet contemplation. We often forget to stop and to contemplate on what we are doing, right? And this makes me this actually reminds me of a poem called Leisure, which starts like this: what is life if full of care? We do not have time to stand and stare. So we are so busy at our daily chores, at our modern fast-paced life, that we hardly stand still, introspect, observe things. That has definitely, that is definitely missing from our modern day life, and leading to a shorter attention span. Then we always look for comparison and validation. So this is the modern day scenario which we are faced with, and in such a scenario it is very difficult to maintain this silence, or to think about the idea of silence as envisaged by the poet, right? Next, how is the poet's appeal for keeping quiet different from absolute sluggishness? This is very important. So it is talking about self introspection. So that is important, because it is not talking about silence without activity, but this silence is going to give us a personal time to think about our actions and overcome whatever woes and defects that we have. Next poem that you have is A Thing of Beauty by John Keats. Now, this is a poem which deals with a lot of imagery. So one answer needs to be prepared related to the imagery, the sensual imagery, because Keats as a poet, that is his speciality. He was able to create a lot of sensuous imagery. Okay, that is his forte, right? So in this poem also we are acquainted with a lot of images. So the first one is the cooling comfort of the bower, dancing daffodils in its green environs, the babbling stream, the mid-forest brake with the musk rose blooms. All these are images which evoke sense of hearing, touch and smell. So olfactory is smell, auditory and tactile is touch. So these are the different images, and these are the words. Okay, then the stories of the mighty and the doom that befalls them, that also appeal to our intellect, right? The endless fountain may be an illusion of the fountain of youth. Illusion, that is a poetic device. However, it has a sublimating effect on the reader. So the fountain, which is a fountain of the youth, it is an allusion to the fountain of the youth. And Keats' poetic descriptions definitely presents that appeals to us, because A Thing of Beauty, it describes a lot of beautiful things, right? So all those beautiful things appeal to our senses and gives us delight. Please do prepare on the basis of these pointers, do prepare an answer on the sensory images, because Keats is well known for that. Next, we have The Roadside Strand by Robert Frost. Now, the central idea of Roadside Strand is definitely the divide between the rich and the poor, right? So, money. What is creating that divide? Money definitely is creating the divide. So, the question is, money holds the same value everywhere. But the poet draws a distinction between city money and country money. So, the divide between the rich and the poor, the city and the country. And what is creating the divide? The money, right? So in city it differs from how it is earned and spent in country. And the country, in city, money is acquired through complex and impersonal transactions, whereas in country it is earned through hard work, which is very simple. Okay, but in city it is much more complex, and personal connections in countryside, right? The poet suggests that city money lacks the genuine human touch and simplicity which is found in country money. Now the question which is more important is the contrast between the city and the country. Okay, that is very, very important. Now the next question is, the roadside stand and the moving cars are a contrast around which the entire poem is woven. This contrast is very, very important. Now roadside stand, as the title itself suggests, it is placed in stark contrast with the moving cars, and that forms the central theme of this particular poem. The stand represents a fixed, simple and traditional way of life, which again corresponds to our first question, right? Simplicity. Moving cars, fast paced, modern and impersonal city life, right? And the difference between the two is highlighted. The clash between old and new, tradition and progress, these are the key words. This you should definitely put up in your writing. And it reflects the poet's contemplation on changing times and the loss of rural simplicity. This is again very, very important. And again, it is one of the important elements, key elements of the theme of the poem. Changing times, loss of rural simplicity, divide between the rich and the poor, the fast-paced modern life in contrast with the simplicity and the traditional way of life. Okay, all these are very, very important pointers. Next, the economic well-being of a country depends on balanced development of city and villages. This could be a value-based question, right? So definitely it cannot stand without the city or without the village. Both play important role. The villages definitely play an integral role. The cities and villages are interdependent on each other, because from the villages what do we get? The agricultural products. Okay, and factory made products, employment avenues are provided by the city, right? So the poet emphasizes on the balance between both. The poet feels that the villagers are unassuming and simple, and consequently they are exploited by various kinds of people, and the poet wants to remove all of these people who exploit the simple village people. So we need to definitely sit back and contemplate and create a balance between the city and the village. Next is Aunt Jennifer's Tiger by Adrienne Rich. Now, Aunt Jennifer's Tiger by Adrienne Rich, the most important theme is definitely related to marriage, patriarchy, feminism, right? All these are important themes. Womanhood, art as created by a woman, all these are important themes. The first question is, there's a quote given: every poem breaks a silence that had to be overcome. This is also a quote by Adrienne Rich. How far do you think this quote is justified in this poem? Or Adrienne Rich chose to express her silent revolt through her poem. Very, very important. Basically the theme of the poem, right? And she did it with embroidery, so the theme of art also comes in. So she breaks the silence about the oppression of women in a patriarchal society. This is the theme of this particular poem, right? And she shows the impact that this oppression, what this oppression can have on the women's lives. Institution of marriage, the traditional institution of marriage is criticized. That is male domination over women, and women, they have to bear the burden of this institute of marriage, which is definitely patriarchal, right? So she is a victim of an unhappy marriage under a domineering husband, and she proves it, she demonstrates it through a lot of symbols in the poem, right? So both use their creative, so she is now choosing embroidery to vent her angst, and she chooses the creative outlet as a form of protest against societal expectation. This is very, very important. She uses the image of fluttering fingers. Now here we have imagery as well as alliteration. This is highlighting her victimization. Fluttering fingers through the wool. Okay, that is definitely to highlight her victimization. She's burdened by the weight of her marriage because we can see that through the symbol of the marriage ring that she is wearing, and how that is causing difficulty, literally as well as metaphorically. Because she has to, how metaphorically? Because she has to follow few gender codes as a woman. Okay, and holding the wool firmly is also a task. This is literally, and metaphorically she is, burdened by all the gender norms that she has to follow. So this is highlighting the oppressed state of the women. Next is the contrast between Aunt Jennifer's tigers and her own reality. Okay, these could be the different types of questions. How it is framed is different. The answer, what they are asking is basically how the aunt who is weak, meek, submissive, how she's contrasting her meekness, submissiveness with the tigers on her embroidery that she is embroidering, right? The aunt is bonded in matrimony and faces several restrictions, but the tigers that she is, expressing through her art, they are strong, fearless, confident. They are bold creatures and they are not scared of anyone. They move about freely. She describes the tigers as bright topaz denizens of a world of green. If you could quote these words, it is going to definitely be an advantage to you. So they are strong characters and they are not afraid to show themselves to the world, unlike Aunt, right? She creates a contrast between the tigers and how the women of her time behave in the world of men. You could also talk about the burden that she's carrying, the weight of the marriage ring, the fluttering fingers. All these images also you could add up to. So that was the revision of all the poems from your grade 12th syllabus. Next, we would be definitely coming up with the prose chapters, one short revision of the prose chapters. I hope this video was helpful to you all. So do not forget to share this with your friends, like the channel, subscribe to the channel for more such videos. Thank you, take care, all the best for your exams. Bye-bye.